Hey, I'm Adam Wilbur, and I'd like to share with you a story. Now, I don't know about you, but personally, I feel like everywhere we look nowadays, we're being bombarded with negativity, whether it's being shared on social media, the news, or heck, even being gossiped about at a kid's soccer game. Negativity seems to be prevalent in society today at almost an alarming rate. And I often wonder to myself, what can I, as one single person, do to change that, to make this world a little better place? And I think this story is a great example of exactly that, how one person can make a difference. See, my granddad told me this story. He was an amazing man. He's actually the guy that got me into magic many years ago. His name was Jack. When he told me this story, I was only 7 years old. Now, Grandpa Jack was what's called an ace pilot in the Vietnam War, but really at heart, he was nothing more than a joker. Always wanted to make people laugh and smile. My granddad grew up on the East Coast in a little North Carolina town called Oak Island. If my memory serves me correctly, the zip code of Oak Island was 28465. Now, time was much different back then. It was pretty early, 1937, when this takes place. My granddad, he used to walk those coastlines every single day in the sand, 3 miles, not a care in the world. Later in his life, if you were to ask him, he'd say I was the king of nowhere, USA. But in reality, I think I was nothing more than just a jackstraw, a nobody with his head in the sand. It's funny how time can make us change our perspective. How sometimes we look back and wonder what would have happened if we made different choices. Were we dealt a fair hand, or maybe should have shuffled that deck just one more time. Anyway, Granddad loved everything about those early morning walks, the salty air, the crashing waves, the horizon just before daybreak. He'd go out to the beach super early in the morning, sometimes as early as 5 or 6 a.m. There were days where he'd walk that coastline all day until 9, 10 o'clock at night. Now, during the summer of '37, the Myrtle Beach aristocrats would drive up from the city, and they were dressed in their fancy swimwear. They would plant umbrellas in the sand like flags. It's not so much different than what you'd see on the beach today, but for a country boy from the Carolina Hills, they looked like true royalty, you know, like kings and queens. That never bothered Granddad, though. He just flashed a smile at the pretty girls as they passed by. See, he had this infamous smile. People used to call it his old ace in the hole. Now, my granddad has been gone for over a decade now, and I can still remember that smile as clear as day. Everything changed in the summer of '44. There was a huge storm. They actually called it the Storm of '44. Granddad used to say, if you've ever been in a hurricane, you have one of 2 options: run or ride it out. But for a poor North Carolina family, there was really only one option. So they hunkered down with the wind and the rain as it battered the coast. He used to tell me that if there was ever such a thing as a Category 10 hurricane, that's what this one would have looked like. What he saw on the beach the next day stuck with him. And it's the reason he told this story. See, he saw starfish, thousands of them, as far as the eye could see, scattered on the shore. He'd never seen so many in all of his days, but there they were, thrown out of the sea by the storm. And standing among them was a little girl, little red-headed girl with deep, loving eyes and beautiful curls. She was picking up starfish one at a time, tossing them back into the sea, trying to save them all. So walking over, my granddad put on a fresh smile, and that old ace in the hole smile, they called it. He introduced himself and he said, "Hi, I'm Jack. What are you doing?" She picked up another starfish, she tossed it in, and in her little innocent voice she said, "I'm saving the starfish." My granddad looked around for a minute and softly said, "Well, dear, that's nice, but there are too many. One little girl isn't going to make a difference to all of them." My granddad said that little girl looked almost defeated as she processed what he had just said, as if someone had literally taken the wind right out of her sails. Then without hesitation, she looked back up, smiled. "You know what, Jack," she said, as she picked up another starfish, tossed it into the sea. "It might not make a difference to all of them, but it certainly made all the difference to that one." My granddad said that's the moment that changed his life, as he realized just how right she was. So he started helping, one at a time, picking up starfish and tossing them back into the sea, back to safety. Just the 2 of them. One old king and one innocent little queen. Now, before long, it wasn't 5 o'clock in the morning anymore. Soon, I believe it was 8 a.m., And it wasn't even morning anymore. It was 2 in the afternoon and 3 in the afternoon. At this time, they'd been working almost non-stop for 10 hours straight. So as my granddad stood up to stretch his back, that's when he realized something truly amazing that had happened. He looked across the beach and there were 7 people helping, then 8, then 9, then 10. Everybody on that beach started joining in, taking starfish, tossing them back in the water. Now, you may have guessed it at this point. My granddad, he made this story up. 28465 wasn't even a zip code back then, and Oak Island wasn't founded until '99. It's just a story that my granddad told his son, my dad. His name was Jack too. He first told my dad this back in '69, I believe. And the point was to let him know that anyone can make a difference, and you don't have to be royalty, you know, a king or a queen, but anyone. Anytime I think I'm faced with a challenge that seems so big that just me, myself, couldn't make a difference, I just think back to my granddad and that old ace smile he used to have. And I realize that if one little girl on a storm-battered beach can be responsible for saving thousands of starfish with one kind gesture, then every action we take, every word we speak, and every friendship we garnish truly does have the potential to change this world for the better. Thanks for listening to my story, and I hope today you can find a way to make one creative act of kindness that turns into that butterfly effect and plays its part in changing this world for the better. I'm Adam Wilbur, and thanks so much for your time.